right, I'm recording. It looks like everything's pulsating in audio hijack.
This is episode 7 of Ruminate. Ruminate is a podcast about opportunities and challenges that technology presents us with every day. I'm Rob Lewis, and with me, as always, is John Voorhees. Hi, John.
Hey, Rob. How are you today?
I'm very well, John. How are you?
Good, good. You know, I saw yesterday that you finally dove into the Batman series, the modern Batman series. Is that right?
Yeah. Before you start laying into me for not watching these films,
yeah. Well, you saw what was coming. I can tell.
So, I feel like in the back of my mind, I remembered that Batman and Batman Returns in I think it was like 1989 and then early 90s, that I'd always heard that those were terrible. And I was under the impression that Batman Begins was kind of in that category. I didn't realise that it was part of the kind of the Dark Knight stuff.
Got it.
Which again, I hadn't watched those either. I've now watched.
Yeah, I was going to say the old ones are pretty campy. They're not particularly good, and they got more and more off the deep end as they went, to the point where you had Arnold Schwarzenegger as Mr. Freeze, and I think Danny DeVito was the Penguin, and I forget. I've seen all those, but a long time ago.
Yeah, and I think just in the back of my mind, I'd kind of avoided them because I'd heard, the earlier ones were so bad.
Right.
And because I hadn't watched The Dark Knight, because I was like, oh, I need to watch the other one, but is the other one terrible? And it only kind of dawned on me a few months ago. I'd seen a few things. I was like, right, it's an actual trilogy. It's separate from the other ones. I should probably get in and watch these. And yeah, I mean, I watched the first one and it was fantastic. There was an amusing part with Liam Neeson. I'm not sure if you saw me tweet this, but
I did. There's
a scene at the beginning where he says, "I had a wife once, but she was taken," and I could not stop laughing because it's just an interesting little quote from him in that film.
Yeah, it's like a callback to the Taken movies, but I think the Taken movie probably came after that one. I want to say, am I right about that?
Yeah, I think so, because Batman Begins is 2008. I think Taken was after that, but it was just kind of funny to see that in that kind of context. And then straight after that, I watched Dark Knight as well, which is again really good. And then once we finish recording today, I'm going to watch Dark Knight Rises as well.
Good. I was going to say you got one more to go, and that's a lot of movie watching already just for one day. That's those are like 2.5 hours each, right?
Yeah, like 2.5 hours. So we started kind of Batman Begins. We were having some dinner, and we're like, we'll pop that one on. Yeah, we've got plenty of time. But what it's like. You pause it and you chat, or you go and get a drink, or make a cup of coffee or something. And by the time we finished watching Dark Knight, it was like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning or something, and we were like,
oh, wow.
we can't watch another one.
Yeah, no. Have you seen any recent movies that anything has come out recently? I've been meaning to go see Spectre and haven't seen that, and I don't know. I haven't been to the movies in quite a while.
I don't go to the cinema. I don't enjoy how much it costs. I don't particularly enjoy the experience of sitting with other people. I think the last thing I saw in the cinema was Age of Ultron, because I really enjoy the Marvel films. So we went and saw that at the cinema, but for the most part, we'll just wait until they're out on Blu-ray or iTunes or, whatever. You can't really say home video now. That doesn't have any content. It doesn't have any cultural context.
It makes you sound
anymore.
like an old man, Rob. It makes you sound like an old man. Yeah, I've been meaning to watch Jurassic World. I haven't done that yet. I've got that one is available on iTunes, so
yeah,
I'll do that.
That's a fun one. It's kind of like the other Jurassic Park films. It's a little bit on the ridiculous side, but it is fun.
Well, Rob, I wanted to tell you about some more chicken that I had. We've talked a lot about Nando's, right?
I think we are the unofficial podcast of Nando's.
Yes, we're just waiting for them to call with the sponsorship offers. But I've got another chicken restaurant, and maybe they'll step up to the plate and actually sponsor the show. It's Gus's world famous fried chicken, and it is a staple of Memphis, Tennessee. And I had heard about it way back when. I don't remember. I'm pretty sure Stephen Hackett had mentioned it to me one time because I was driving through Memphis on the way to a vacation and was asking him about places to stop to eat. And I didn't actually try it back then, but because I think we ended up not going through Memphis, but they just opened one in Chicago, not too far from where I work, like maybe, I don't know, a mile walk or so. And it is amazing. It's the best fried chicken I've ever had. It's real spicy and super crispy and crunchy. And I don't know, it's, if you ever have a chance to have Gus's world famous fried chicken, you should. I think they're in Memphis, they're in Chicago now. They're in a couple other places, mostly centered around, I guess radiating out from Tennessee, but good stuff, really good. And it gives Nando's a run for its money. Totally different and much more unhealthy, but sometimes, anything deep fried is good in my book.
I'm just looking at the website now. It looks really good, and if it's as good as you're saying, and maybe I'll just have to come out to Chicago, won't I? And you can you can take me there.
Will. Yeah, I know. It was so good. I had it on a Tuesday, and Saturday we had people over for dinner, and I drove downtown and back to get 2 20-piece buckets of fried chicken for everybody for the party, and it was and it took me 2 hours round trip, but it was worth it because the fried chicken was so good.
I think it's always worth it. We've got I don't know if you have Five Guys burgers.
Yep. We do.
No, they've got a few branches in the UK, mostly centralised around London, and they've got a couple elsewhere. And there's one opening up about a 20-minute, half-hour drive from my work, and
oh, nice.
And this is on Thursday, so my boss is like, right, on Thursday we're getting it straight away, because the nearest one to us from here is kind of an hour and a half's drive, so it's not really feasible.
No, that's a long way to go for a hamburger.
So Thursday's going to be a good day.
That does sound good. Maybe I'll have to find a Five Guys. I know they've got a couple of downtown Chicago. We've got a ton of burger places. We have actually a place called Au Cheval in Chicago, which just recently got written up in one of the food magazines or TV shows or something as being like one of the 5 best burgers in the United States.
Oh wow!
And I haven't been since the spring because the place is not big. It's a very small hipster type place. Has a really good tap and really serves nothing but French fries and hamburgers. And ever since that was written up, the lines have been down the block. And so you have to, and they don't take reservations. You have to just kind of stand in line waiting for your burger.
Oh, so you have to kind of take a day off work and plan around it and make sure you get there on time.
Basically, yes.
So it's probably enough about food for now.
You're making me hungry for sure.
Yeah, me too. So you've got some, there was a couple of little notes you had here about release notes that we didn't get to last time.
Yeah. I totally forgot to mention this. You may have seen it, but David Smith had tweeted out his a screenshot of his Apple Watch, because what he did was when he went on stage for his talk, he started a workout on his watch to track his heart rate, and it was really interesting. It went from like 60 to 110 or 120, something like that, very quickly. He was giving his talk, and then you see it dip way down and then go back up again. And I was talking to him afterwards and asking him, what's the dip? Is that when you left the stage? And he said, no, that was actually when I realized that I was almost done and I was going to survive. He relaxed and his heart rate went way down. And then they said he got off the stage, and then it went back up because it was kind of his reaction to, oh my God, I'm finally done. and he freaked out a little bit, and his heart rate went back up, and then he was fine. But I just thought it was kind of interesting to be tracking that during a talk. Yeah,
it's an interesting use of the workout app to kind of see, as you say, his ups and downs while he's doing a talk. And I've seen a few other examples of this, where people are tracking it during, job interviews and things like that. So it's it's a nice side effect of having a heart rate monitor on the Apple Watch.
Right. And so I found his tweet, so we'll put that in the show notes. I thought it was kind of interesting to see. The other thing was really just, I guess it's more of an overarching point, which is it was really nice to be at a conference where people didn't feel like talking about making money was a bad thing, because sometimes, people find that to be a little crass or whatever. But I don't know. It was a good atmosphere because people were just, very open about, you got, if you're going to continue to do this, if you want to continue to make apps, you're going to have to find a way to make money so you can make more apps. So, that worked out pretty well.
Yeah, I think that's good because I think, whether it's app development or web design or development, whatever it is, if it's something that, essentially you're working for yourself or doing freelance, it can be difficult to kind of find what the level you need to kind of be successful or to make enough money to live, because a lot of people just won't share these details.
Right.
And talking of that, you've noted a couple of other things about working on Scrivener and Blink and things like that. Did you want to just go through those?
Yeah, the thing about Scrivener that I realized after listening back was that I talked a lot last time about where it came from, but not so much where it's going. I don't really know in any specifics where it's going, but end of last year was when I decided to, kind of treat it as a serious business. And that was more of a mental mindset change than anything else. I decided to put some of my own money into it, decided to take it seriously, whatever that means, and set kind of both short-term and long-term goals for, what I thought would be building slowly but surely a successful business. And I'm 1 year into it and a long way from it being a standalone, self-sustaining thing. But it was a good first year, and I think I met pretty much the goals that I had for myself for the first year. And just kind of starting at this point, thinking about next year. But it's one of those things that takes an enormous amount of patience because, especially when you look back at the early days of the App Store and you read all these stories, and I think a lot of people read these stories where someone becomes a millionaire overnight on the App Store. That just doesn't happen anymore. It takes a really long time and a lot of work. So something to keep in mind and kind of keep focused on as I move forward. So that's about all I had to say. So
so obviously with Scrivener, you've got King Me is out now. And obviously that's on the Apple TV. So I think we probably should talk a little bit more about the Apple TV because there was a few points that we missed off last week. Obviously not 2 weeks ago. We've both had the Apple TV kind of fully functioning for a couple of weeks now. The first thing I wanted to talk about was the controller because we briefly mentioned it but didn't really get to it. So after the show, I ordered the controller, the Nimbus Steel Series controller. Because I kind of played a couple of games and just realised that the Siri remote really just isn't up to it at all. Is that kind of the experience you found with the controller as well?
No, absolutely, especially for games like Asphalt 8. That was just no good with the controller, I thought. And I think it's just useful even for games like Crossy Road or Alto's Adventure or something like that. It's useful to have a button to press instead of a trackpad to click.
Yeah, definitely. I found with the Nimbus, the quality is very good.
Yeah.
But I would like it to be a little bit better quality. When I compare it, I played on my Xbox 360 last night after having played on the Apple TV for a little bit. And there's definitely the Xbox controller definitely feels significantly better. Even though the Nimbus is pretty good. But it is what it is, and from everything that I've read, this is the best one to get if you're going to get a controller at all.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I mean, I know they talked about this a little bit, I think, on ATP, the last ATP, about how third-party controllers never seem quite up to the ones that come with, they're made by the manufacturers of the consoles. And I noticed the same thing. We have a 360. The Nimbus is probably closer to the 360 controller than it is to, say, like a PS4 controller, but it's good and it feels fairly solid, but it's just a little bit, I don't know if maybe it's the buttons or the sticks, they just don't feel quite as solid or as high a quality as the 360 controller.
Yeah, definitely. I think I agree. I mean, I think some of the shoulder buttons are a little bit funny. They're not quite as good, and the analog sticks are not quite as good. Now, in terms of me ordering one, this was a little bit of a pain for me because if I want something, normally I just jump on Amazon. I pay for Prime; it'll be here next day.
Right.
Of course, Amazon are not only not selling at the Apple TV itself, but it appears that they're not selling any Apple TV related accessories. So
oh, wow.
they don't have any of the controllers. You know, they don't have the Nimbus or a couple of the other ones that are specifically built for the Apple TV.
Did you buy it from the Apple Store then, from the online Apple Store?
Yeah, I went with online because much like a lot of things that I would like, the nearest store to me is a kind of a bit of a pain to get to. It's kind of like half an hour drive or so. So I ordered from the Apple Store, which is fine, except I had to pay delivery because it wasn't up to the minimum delivery order, and they don't sell anything cheap on the Apple Store to bulk up that order.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I did the same thing. I bought mine at a physical Apple Store because we actually have one that's maybe 10-minute drive from my house. So I just went out one night, I guess the Friday night before our last recording, to get it. And I've used it a decent amount, but I found so far that I haven't used my Apple TV much more than I used to use my Apple TV. Still, I'm using it mainly for what we always used it for, which was renting movies, watching Netflix, that sort of thing.
So for me, I've found there's a few things that it's actually replaced what I would have done on my Mac or on my phone, and maybe I would have AirPlayed. Things like watching trailers. I mean, I know YouTube was there before, but it wasn't great. Kind of YouTube seems a bit better now. And there's a few other apps, like I can see what movies there's an app to see what movies are playing at the cinema. So if we do decide to go, and I can watch trailers for new movies coming out, that kind of thing. And I've also noticed, like my girlfriend doesn't really play kind of any of the consoles we've got, like the 360 or the PS3 or anything like that. I downloaded Rayman because she kind of likes those kind of games, and she's played that quite a lot now because it's easy to just kind of pick up the controller, select the game, and it's just loaded. Whereas if it was at 360, she's got to switch the source on the TV and put the disc in, and kind of wait for that to all power up. So that's an interesting side effect, I think, of kind of having all this content on the one box.
Yeah, no, I've definitely played a little Crossy Road or Alto's Adventure and things, especially at night after I watch a little TV and don't feel like going to bed yet. I'll play a little Apple TV.
So how has the, if you don't mind talking about, how have kind of sales and marketing been for King Me? Because obviously you were there on launch day. So presumably you would have the biggest advantage over any other apps that weren't there on day one.
Yeah, you would think. Not so much, though. It's not been great. I mean, I think the problem is that, typically when you're on, and that was the point of being there on launch day, was the hope that there would be people there to buy it in a limited number of apps to buy, and so that would boost sales, at least for the short term. The problem is discoverability. Without being able to, link to the app and have people buy it through iTunes or on their phones or in some other manner, they have to actually go onto the Apple TV and search the words King Me, and it's very hard to get people to do that from a marketing standpoint. So the sales haven't been great. I mean, it's doing okay, but I think that the Apple TV, at the moment at least, is more an adjunct to the phone than it is an actual standalone thing. I think most of the games there that are being featured are ones that are universal at this point, and I can see, just like having a watch app, having a TV app is a boost and an additional selling point if you have an existing app that's discoverable outside of Apple TV. But having an Apple TV only app right now, I think, is a really, really hard way to go.
Yeah, I've kind of seen that same thing. You kind of touched on it with the links and having to search and stuff. Obviously, I've got the atvapps.net, where I'm posting decent apps that I find and screenshots and links and things like that. And without being able to link to the store, it kind of makes it very difficult. I see a lot of people who follow the account on Twitter who are favoriting tweets, or liking now, I suppose. They're favoriting kind of every single tweet that comes through, and I assume that's because they want to store them and go back to them to then go and search on the Apple TV, which, that's just a terrible experience for trying to buy apps. And I found it myself. I think you've tweeted me a couple of apps, and I've gone, oh yeah, brilliant, I'll look at those, but of course I can't click anywhere. I need to add them to a note or a reminder or something to remember to look at them when I get home on the Apple TV. And I think, as you say, that's probably affecting sales quite a lot, even for popular games.
Right. I mean, you're motivated because you're trying to run a website. So think about people. I see what you tweet, and I'm like, oh, that sounds interesting. I'll check that out. By the time I get home at night, I've totally forgotten what it was you tweeted, and that's why people are favoriting those, I would suspect. Now, I mean, there are two things at work here. One is discoverability. The other one is it's just a small install base at this point. So I was never expecting that King Me would be selling huge quantities. But, with a relatively limited store, I did expect that even if it were not featured, that there would be the ability to drive a few more sales being there on the first day. And I don't think that really has been the case. I saw a couple of tweets that I will put in the show notes. There was one, I'm trying to see which app this is. There was a guy, Seasonality TV. Do you know what that is?
I don't actually.
Okay,
but I'm going to add that to the list of things to look at later.
Yeah,
Seasonality. That's the world we live in now.
Right. No, Seasonality TV. This was, I think, about 4 days into the Apple TV. Was the number 31 top grossing app overall for the Apple TV App Store, and it had made about $200. So that gives you an idea of the magnitude of money being made for an app that's pretty high up in the top grossing, which to me that's very low. And the reason, I mean, we probably ought to explain how it is that we know that this is number 31 top grossing. The lists have existed for a while. Maybe you know better than I do how people are finding these, because I haven't actually gone and seen how you go about discovering these lists, but they're able to pull them from the iTunes store, I think, and all the categories that you have for regular, iOS apps are there, and you can find where you are in the rank. It's just that there are only a few lists published at this point, and I think still only in the United States. I don't think you have categories yet in the UK, do you?
No, last I checked, which was earlier today, we still just have the top charts, which is obviously free, paid, and top grossing, and that's it. There's still no categories here in the UK or anywhere else, I think, outside of the US.
And all we have is games and entertainment, which is, and I'll tell you, you go to games, and it's almost the same as the front page of the store. I mean, it's just the same games and a handful more. So it hasn't really done much.
I haven't. I've seen, actually, I think on the first day that the store was live, I saw a number being bandied around that it was about 700 or 800 apps on the App Store total. This was from the guy who runs slidetoplay.com, which is kind of an app website. And the most recent number from him was only just over 1,000, I think maybe 1,100. So there really hasn't been a huge amount of apps actually even going into the App Store for the last 2 weeks. I mean, you're looking at maybe 3, 4, possibly 500 over the last 2 weeks. So it's certainly not been as popular as I was expecting it to be.
And Slide to Play, I think that's where I've gone to find. He has on his site you can break down the Apple TV apps by category. So, for instance, King Me is in 2 categories. It's in games, board, which is board games, and family. But those, I'm not exactly sure where he's pulling this from, but these are not categories that are available if you're on your Apple TV at this point.
No, it's kind of part of the iTunes API, but what they're doing is they're faking the headers so that the API thinks it's the Apple TV rather than a browser, which then returns the data. I believe that's how they're getting this data.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I knew there was something like this. Okay.
So there's also another site if you're looking to kind of track new apps and things like that called appslice.co, and they seem to be doing a very good job of. It's definitely updated more than the Slide to Play. I think Slide to Play is being manually done every day, but AppSliced appears to be doing it kind of every half an hour, every hour.
Oh, wow.
But as I say, I'm only seeing maybe between 2 and 10 apps a day being added, which, to be honest, for a new platform is not bad, but I was kind of expecting to see it a little bit higher than that.
Yeah, it's going to take a while. I mean, I don't know. I think there needs to be more category breakdowns, easier discovery. Definitely need links more than anything else, I think, at this point.
Yeah, links are really... That is a huge problem. Because, for example, there's a game called Evil Knievel, which, if you haven't played, this is a universal app. It's on iOS and on the Apple TV. And this is a really good game. But I saw it initially, so I clicked it, and it opened in iTunes, because obviously it's a universal app. But there's no mention there of if it supports the game controller, or if it even is part of the Apple TV. Like, I was kind of just taking somebody's tweet, as fact, but in reality, there was no way for me to even see if it worked on the Apple TV.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, because if you're on the Apple TV, it'll tell you whether it's got game controller support, but I guess it doesn't in iTunes, huh?
No, not that I can see. Maybe I'm missing it. Maybe it's in the little metadata somewhere. But I certainly couldn't see it for this particular app. Again, if you haven't played that app, we'll put a link in the show notes, because that is a really, really fun game. It's fun on the iPhone, but on the Apple TV, especially with the controller, it really is great.
Yeah, there's no support at all for Apple TV apps, at least Apple TV only apps in the iTunes Search API right now, because I play around with that API all the time because of Blink, and I was putting in the app. Every single piece of media has a unique ID. It's like a serial number almost associated with it, and you can do lookups. There's a lookup API, and you just feed it that number, and it returns all the metadata about the stuff that about the media, and it doesn't exist for the Apple TV only apps at this point.
No, I mentioned something to you during the week on our Slack, so that there's something weird going on with iTunes. So there's definitely some support for Apple TV apps there, because I was seeing Apple TV only apps download to iTunes, and I could see their icon in the My Apps tab. But if I right click on them and click Showing iTunes, it just shows me another app by that same developer. And if that developer hasn't got any other apps, it just shows me a blank page. There's no information there at all. So it seems like maybe they might be working on something for the iTunes store, with web links and things like that, hopefully. But right now, it's all a bit of a mess.
Yeah, no, definitely. Going back a second to the controller, the other thing that's a little disappointing, and it's not the controller's fault. It's got a lot of buttons, and most of them are completely useless, because everybody's got to support the remote too. So, I guess you can support. You could support more buttons on the remote, but most apps at this point don't, right?
Yeah, I think the problem is that they have to build it with the Siri remote support, which essentially gives you a D-pad and two buttons. So as you say, depending on the game, like for example, Evil Knievel uses two of the shoulder buttons for the two buttons that it uses. But then if you go onto another app, it might use A and B, or X and Y. But as you say, that it's all a little bit wasted when you're looking at like a 12 or 16 button controller, and they can only ever really use two.
Right. Yeah, I'll have to check that game out. I think Mike Hurley mentioned it too on Virtual, and it sounds like a fun game.
Yeah, it definitely is. I think that was where I heard about it as well. But yeah, that's a really fun game, and it works really well on the Apple TV as well.
So you want to? What have you been doing with side-loading apps? You're like the side-loading Apple TV app expert. I have not done this yet, but it looks like there's more and more interesting stuff coming out.
Yeah, there's a few different things. We mentioned the BBC iPlayer app that somebody had kind of hacked together. Now that's, again, this is, source code's on GitHub. You download it and sideload it. So sideloading is, I'm sure you've done it. You plug in your Apple TV with a USB-C cable to your laptop or your Mac, go into Xcode, choose the Apple TV, and you just kind of deploy it to the device. And this seems to be the kind of default way that kind of apps that maybe wouldn't be allowed in the Apple TV store. Right. A good example of this is Provenance, which is it's a universal. It's an emulator. So you can play all the SNES and NES Master System games, that kind of thing.
Right.
And this has been available for the iPhone for a while. And I think it was a change in iOS 9. allowed anyone with a free developer account to install apps that they've built onto an actual device, whereas previously I believe that was part of the paid tier.
Yeah, that's true. It used to be you could only get those things to run in the simulator, but when everything went free, you could put it on a device at that point.
Yeah, so as I say, Provenance is really good. This is it's an emulator. It supports the game controller. So you install that, you click kind of load ROMs, and it sets up a little web server where you just go to the address on your Mac or wherever, and drop the ROMs in. Close that, and you can kind of just jump in and play those games. There's a couple of others. Aerial, not massively useful, but this is just a viewer for the screensavers. So you can kind of pick a specific one to watch and just play it, and it will just go for it. And the last one was a browser that Steve Troughton Smith built. It was obviously, this is kind of just an example, and you have to edit the SDK and allow WebKit or WebUI for the Apple TV. And so I kind of messed around and got this installed. But to be honest, there's a reason there's no browser on the Apple TV. This is just a terrible, awful experience. I mean, this is not a reflection of the code that Steve wrote. This is just a reflection of a TV is probably not the best place for a browser.
Right, and since they made the decision not to put one in, I'm sure that they have not. Apple has not done anything to the APIs to make it easy on the TV.
No, definitely not. I mean, this, as I say, it's just kind of a web view, and it uses the trackpad for the cursor. But it's not a great experience. I kind of just did it to just to see what it was like, and it's bad. It's as bad as you can imagine it would be.
Did you run into any provisioning issues when you were trying to deploy these using Xcode? I mean, sometimes Xcode can be a little fiddly if you don't know your way around that sort of thing. Yeah,
the only problem that I've had with most of them is the kind of the identifier of the app.
Right, that's what I figured, because it's the com dot whatever.
Yeah, so I mean the solution to that is I just go in and put dash Robb or something at the end, and that just installs it and kind of makes it unique so that it can sign it and to install it.
Yeah, I mean, that's my only point with that is it's a little bit of a process, right? It's a little fiddly, especially if you're not familiar with Xcode, which is kind of a beast of an app.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this isn't for everyone. I've heard from a couple of people as well. People that don't have a Mac. They're kind of iOS only, or they just have maybe a Windows laptop or something. Obviously, that isn't open for them. But this is, if you're willing to kind of go the extra mile to get this stuff installed, then it's great. The only other kind of issue I had, if you're not kind of a developer or something like that, is CocoaPods. Where you're installing packages and frameworks and things like that.
Yep.
Those can be a bit fiddly at times. But for the most part, it's not too bad.
Yep. Okay. Well, that's good. Do many of these use CocoaPods?
I think there was one that I was messing about with that I haven't listed there. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was. For the most part, it's Swifty JSON is what a lot of people are using if it's kind of just calling out to an API. That seems to be the default library to use to parse JSON if you're using Swift.
Okay, did you see that Joe Steele had raised a question on Twitter and that he asked us?
So the question was, is the state of your Apple TV backed up anywhere? Do you have to do all that over again? I assume by all that he means the setup of the Apple TV.
Yeah, and I think the answer is no, but it should be.
Yeah, I mean, it hadn't really occurred to me because kind of my old Apple TV had just sat there for 3 years and it was what it was, and I'd never really replaced it. But yeah, that's going to be interesting if maybe they upgrade. If they upgrade this every year, and it's the kind of thing that people do upgrade. What are you going to do? Are you going to just have to sit there and kind of rearrange the home screen again and download all the apps and sign into all of this stuff again? I wonder if maybe there's anything being backed up to iCloud that's maybe not documented or just not shown in the menus.
Yeah, I suppose that's possible, but I mean, until there's some interface to to get that information back, it's not really of any use to anybody at this point. It makes a lot of sense to me that it ought to back up just like an iOS device does.
Yeah, I mean, I'd hope that would be the case. I mean, maybe they'll introduce it, once the next version of the Apple TV comes along. And actually, talking of iCloud, that does bring up an interesting point and thing that I've noticed. So, like I said, my girlfriend's been playing Rayman, and that uses Game Center. But the Game Center is, of course, logged into my Game Center account. There's no concept of accounts or, use this iCloud account for this particular app, or, sign in with Game Center with this particular app. It's kind of just all linked to my account, and that's it. And I mean, obviously in my situation, it's just me and my girlfriend using it, which isn't really a problem, but I can imagine, in your house, you've got your wife and the 3 kids as well.
Right. No, it's
I can imagine this getting pretty complicated.
Well, it's definitely a problem because you don't want people thinking that, your girlfriend's scores are yours, because she might not be as good as you, Rob.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's obviously the biggest issue.
You don't want all those people polluting your high score. You know what I mean? No, it is a problem. And for instance, Netflix has an interface where it allows you to sign into a particular, family member when you're watching Netflix, so you're not getting the recommendations for everybody in your family all in one bucket. There ought to be something like that for Game Center. I agree, where you get, if you're going to play a game, it ought to give you maybe a pop-up of some kind that lets you choose who you're going to log in as and where your scores and that sort of thing are stored.
Yeah, because there was another app that I found called Magpie Video, which is, I guess, the easiest way to explain it. It's kind of like Instapaper, but for video. And they've got an iOS app and an Apple TV app and a Mac app. But because they use CloudKit, I think is the framework for user accounts and some syncing and stuff like that. If me and somebody else, so my girlfriend had an account or were using Magpie, there's no way for her to get to her watch later list on the Apple TV because it's just CloudKit. It just uses the iCloud account.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, there's a lot of little things like that need to be figured out, and it's going to take a little while, I think. Yeah,
definitely. There's a couple of other podcasts that we've both listened to and put in here. Upgrade 61, Joe Steele, who we just mentioned, was on that, and they talk a lot about the Apple TV, the hardware for the most part, and Connected as well. Episode 64, they kind of talk about games and the App Store and things like that. We'll pop links in the show notes to those because those were both interesting to listen to.
Yeah, no, those were both good comprehensive discussions about the Apple TV, especially, Joe has some real strong opinions about the setup process and the hardware and the remote. He makes a lot of good points on that episode, as do Jason Snell and Mike Hurley. So both of those are worth listening to, I think. So in the last week, or since our last show, the iPad Pro came out, which is kind of interesting. And I don't think we have a lot to say about it because neither one of us have it. Are you planning to get one, Rob?
No. I mean, I said to you before we started recording. I mean, I didn't even have any iPad. I had one for maybe 2 or 3 years. I would kind of update it periodically when software updates come out. I'd maybe play with it for a little bit. But for the most part, I just didn't use it. So I kind of sold it when I got rid of my 5S.
Yeah, I'm interested in it, very interested in it, but I've decided to kind of wait and see, especially wait and see, what happens in terms of software, because I'm not 100% convinced that we're going to see software that really takes advantage of the hardware at this point. I mean, there are some, there's some apps out there already, but it's going to be a while, I think, before people do real pro complex apps that take advantage of the hardware that is coming out, the iPad Pro hardware.
Yeah, I think I'd agree, because if you look at something like Sketch, which is a fairly popular relatively new kind of Photoshop replacement, I guess, to a certain extent. It's a lot of designers use it for web design and things like that, and vector illustrations. And I wonder if, from their point of view, from a development standpoint, is it worth them building an iPad Pro app when they could probably spend that development time more on the Mac version and make that a lot better, especially when the market for the Mac is obviously much bigger than the iPad Pro right now.
Right. But I think there are a lot of interesting use cases. I know that on Mac Stories, Federico Vitici had said that he had heard rumors that there was an early version of Xcode running on the iPad. I'd be really excited to see something like that. I don't think I would want to do by any means most of my development on an iPad. However, it would be really nice. I mean, there are plenty of times when you're working on something where you're really just looking through the code and trying to find a problem, or you're making minor changes, where you could have an iPad Pro and just scroll through the code and make tweaks here and there, and then do more serious debugging and running of stuff when you got back to your Mac. I think that would be nice to have.
Yeah, I can see how that would be useful. I mean, even if this is kind of just a companion to Xcode, where you kind of say show it on the iPad and you've kind of got access to the debugging tools on there and stuff like that, would probably be quite useful.
Yeah, it'd be nice, and I could see it working well for PDF markups. If you have the pencil, just taking notes, marking up documents. That's the kind of thing that I do in my day job all the time, and it's not very good right now, mainly because the writing on an iPad right now, at least the regular iPad, it just doesn't have the precision to let you really do it well. You have to kind of zoom in and zoom out if you want to write something, and the highlighting works okay. But I think with the pencil, from what I can tell, seeing some of the early videos and things like that, there is definitely a market there for marking up documents in something like PDF Pen or one of the other PDF or text editor apps.
Yeah, I can see how that would be useful. I wonder if, or I would hope that they will add support for the pencil to the rest of the iPad line. Because as you say, if you're doing a lot of document markup during the day, I can see how that would be useful. But are you going to spend $700, $800, $900 on a device just to make that a little bit easier, or would it be better, certainly from your company's perspective, if nothing else, to get maybe a $300 device that you could kind of do this markup on?
Right. No one's going to buy me an iPad Pro, unfortunately, Rob. That's just not in the cards.
No, do you want me to have a word, John? I'll tell him.
Put in a good word for me, but if I end up buying one, it's going to be with my money, unfortunately.
So talking of documents, we wanted to we've switched over to Dropbox Paper for doing our kind of planning and show notes and things like that. For anyone who doesn't know, Dropbox Paper is I guess kind of a Google Docs kind of replacement, or certainly Google Documents itself. The Word kind of word processing type of thing. So what do you think of it, John? Because I've been quite enjoying using it over Google Docs.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, it's got a long way to go. It's still very early days. I don't recall when this got announced. It's been at least a few months, I think, and we've been using it for, I don't know, the last 3 episodes or so. And it's very good for simple text editing. What we basically do is we have a document with a bulleted list of all the things we're going to talk about and notes. And it's nice because it's very easy for me to tell what you've added versus what I've added. You can add, you can highlight something and change, change the characteristics of it. You can make it, like an H1, H2. They've got bullet lists, numbered lists, checkboxes, links. You can drop in images. You can do, bold, strike through, little comments in the margin, which one of my wishes for this is that it has highlighting, so we can maybe highlight a few key bullets in here when we're talking about something. But the way I do that is, you probably saw, I go over to the side and I click a little comment and it highlights it without even putting any text in the comment.
Yeah, I mean, it's been quite interesting. One of the other nice features, I can see you doing it now, is I can see where your cursor is, so I can see you kind of dotting around as you're going through the notes, and I assume you can see the same when I'm doing it.
Right.
So that, there's a few nice, as you say, it's got all the standard formatting stuff you'd kind of expect. The biggest problem, and I think this is probably more a problem for you than for me, because I don't really use my phone a huge amount for this kind of stuff. but there's no iOS app for Dropbox Paper. But if I make changes and you get an email, you can click that and it will open in the Dropbox app. So there's obviously some functionality there to do it, because once that's open in the Dropbox app, you can edit it and do everything you can online. But if you close that window again,
right. It's only still just like in a browser though when you do that, right?
Yeah, it's very strange that it opens in the Dropbox app, but then there's nowhere for you to get back to it. Like what I also don't like is I don't know where these files are saved, because they don't actually seem to be related to my Dropbox account really in any way other than I have to be signed in.
Right. No, that's true. I mean, I would like to see them actually. We have a Dropbox folder that we use for the show where we put the audio files, and I'd like to be able to have this in there so that I can, whether I'm on my Mac and rummaging through folders or I'm on my phone, I can get to the folder and see the document and open it from there. And you're right, and it sends too much email. It sends those emails automatically, right?
I'm certainly not doing it.
Okay,
but
I was going to ask you. I was going to ask you if you're sending me all these emails. Please stop.
No, it seems. I'm not sure how it's doing it. I think it's waiting. I think there must be a certain time once one of us stops editing before it sends an email out. Because I sometimes get emails where you've edited kind of 3 or 4 different paragraphs or 3 sections or whatever, and it kind of sends that all in one go. So it's obviously kind of just waiting until you've stopped editing or I've stopped editing to send those out. But it's not a great notification system. Again, I think if there was an iOS app, maybe that would be better, because I could just kind of get a notification when you've updated it, or possibly kind of a daily overview or something to kind of just see what's changed in the document would be useful. And there's certainly no indication of it on the website of what's been changed since I last logged in.
Yeah, so I mean, the way I've been dealing with it, instead of getting to the document through the emails, is that I've been bookmarking in the bookmark bar the show notes for the next show. So, like after today, I'll drag out the Ruminate number 7 one and replace it with the Ruminate number 8 one as soon as that document has been created. That way, I can just get straight to it, which is nice. The thing that's hard on the phone too is there's no way to do things like tabs, right? So if we're doing one of these bulleted lists and I want to nest something under a bullet, I can't do that when I'm on my phone. And I spend a lot of time, like a lot of the times I am marking this up on my phone, because I'll be on the train or something going to work, and I'll think of something and like, oh, we got to talk about that in Ruminate. So I'll drop it into the notes. And if you ever go in and you see that it's all kind of sloppy, it's usually because I did it on my phone and I can only do so much formatting. And I'll eventually go back to it on my Mac and clean it up a little bit. But it is a little difficult to do when you're on iOS at this point. But all that said, I do like it better than Google Documents.
Oh, absolutely. I do too. I mean, this is kind of what Markdown is to kind of a Word document. It's that kind of same relationship between Google Docs and Paper. Like Paper is just kind of so much simpler to use, and certainly for what we do, we don't need any of the kind of track changes or any of these advanced features that a lot of people do use in Word and Google Docs and things like that. You noted, and I think I kind of have the same concerns, that I haven't really heard anything about this since it was announced. There doesn't seem to be any huge updates for it, and again, no iOS app or any new features and things like that. So that's a little bit concerning.
Yeah, we've been working with it. We've been using it for maybe 6 or 8 weeks, something like that. And as far as I can tell, it's the same as it was the first time I tried it out.
Yeah, it's very strange. But again, I mean, I think we're in a kind of lucky position that in reality, these documents are not that useful once we finish with them. So if we need to, we can switch to whatever we wanted. We can go back to Google Docs, or I can just start. Maybe I'll mail you the show notes, and you can scan them in, and we'll have a look at them that way. But we're in a good position that we can just kind of switch between these things without worrying too much about kind of archiving the notes or anything like that.
Right. No, that's true. I don't know how you would print this either. I wonder how this would come out if you just printed it as though you're printing the page.
I've just pressed print. No, it seems to print out quite nicely. They've obviously got a reasonable print style sheet there. It basically just looks like a plain Word document as you'd expect. So yeah, it can be printed out if we really needed to.
Yeah, I mean, once you're on the page where we are right now with our notes, there is a little menu in the upper left-hand corner you can click on, and that will show you a list of your documents. But there's no way to get to that I know of if you just log into Dropbox, right?
Yeah, that's that. I think that was kind of what I was saying a minute ago. Like, It doesn't appear to be. It's almost like it's a completely separate product. And Dropbox is just the parent company that happens to make this paper app.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. It's like I said, it's nice, and it works for us mainly because our needs with it are very simple, and I think it's worth checking out. But it definitely needs to be everywhere. It needs to be more than just on the web. I'd like to see a native app available for it at a minimum, and maybe some tweaks to the formatting and other features it has on the web.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, as I say, for now, we'll stick with it. But if something else comes along, which I'm sure it will, we can always try that out. And if there was a good episode of Connected, episode 62, where they talked a lot about document collaboration, because Connected and previously to that, when it was called The Prompt, they famously, tried to use iWork and Google Docs and Evernote and all kinds of different things. That was an interesting discussion about this kind of thing.
All right, I think the most solid thing about Paper right now is that it handles collaboration really well. We're both in this, and we can see what each other is doing and mark it up. And I don't think we've ever lost any text or anything doing that.
No, I mean, I think the only thing that we kind of lost per se, I believe you made a comment on a block once, and so I cut that out and moved it to a different document, that particular section. So that comment was kind of lost forever. I knew you'd made the comment, but there was kind of no history of that because that whole block had gone.
Yeah, I think I crashed it trying to put emoji in one time too, because it has its own set of emoji, and I think I crashed it early on with that and then never tried it again. Because I think the comments can have emoji, if I remember right.
Oh, well, I mean, if emoji doesn't work, then forget it. We'll switch to something else next week.
I know. I could try it right now, but I don't want to crash it while we're talking. So
please don't do that.
You know what? I totally forgot one thing about the Apple TV that I wanted to mention that I haven't seen mentioned anywhere else, which is television shows and the UI for dealing with TV series when you've got multiple series. I like The Walking Dead, and I've bought a season pass every year since it came out. So I think it's in the 6th season right now. So when you go to watch a new episode, you have to scroll horizontally just like you do for the keyboard to get letters. But, at 5.5 seasons into The Walking Dead, that is a lot of side scrolling to get down, because the new episode is on the far right. It starts with season 1 and you have to go all the way over. There's not like a pick a season first and then scroll over. It's all in one long row of episodes, which that's got to get fixed, because that's a horrible way to find the newest episodes.
Yeah, that's got to be bad. I mean, as you say, it's kind of 5.5 episodes and 5.5 seasons and 12 or 13 episodes. I can only imagine what that would be like with something like Friends or even The Simpsons. I think you mentioned before we started recording. That's going to get really crazy when you start getting into the kind of hundreds of episodes that these shows have.
Right, or at least have an option to allow it to be put in reverse chronological order, so the newest one is the first one instead of the last one.
Yeah, definitely. I think that would make it a lot easier. So, John, you found my Christmas present.
I did. I found you a Nicolas Cage pillowcase. This comes courtesy of Chris Gonzalez, who writes, I think, The Sweet Setup. Am I right about that? I should know.
I believe so. Yeah, I think that's where I recognise his name. Yeah, it's Tools and Toys and The Sweet Setup.
Yes, and he tweeted the other day, the only Christmas gift you need this year, you're welcome. And it's a Nicolas Cage pillowcase that you can get on Amazon. It's very reasonably priced, and it's got kind of a glamour shot of Nicolas Cage on a leopard, what looks like leopard print sheets.
It really is it's a beautiful pillowcase, John.
It is. It's a little risque maybe for the show. We should be careful. We don't want to get a mature rating here. But check it out. We'll put it in the show notes because it's good stuff. I'll send that to you. I better order it soon though. It might take a while to get to you.
I can only imagine, your wife or my girlfriend's reaction to one of us having one of those, and maybe put it in the the family room or even the bedroom.
It comes in an incredibly wide variety of sizes. And it comes. They actually. Oh, look at this. Have you been on this page? There's all sorts. There's one where Nicolas Cage has rainbows in the background.
The rainbow one is very nice.
Yeah, that's a good one. I didn't realize that they had these different options for different size pillows. I thought they were all Nicolas Cage.
This is going to ruin my Amazon recommendations now.
Yeah, it probably is. It's already done that. Oh, these are really weird images to put on pillows. We got the Green Bay Packers next to Michael Jordan, a football, Nicolas Cage in a glamour shot, some other television star person who I don't know it is because I don't watch enough television. Oh, they've got Doctor Who here too.
Oh dear, John. We'll put a link in the show notes. And if
browsing Amazon with Robb and John, that's what we're going to change the name of the show to, I think.
And please, by all means, click the link so that your Amazon recommendations are ruined for the next week as well, because I know mine will be.
Yeah, that's the best one. That was the best one. You found another a good snack that neither of us have tried, but we may have to at some point. The popcorn, right?
Yeah, this is hickory barbecue pulled pork flavor popcorn.
So it's only.
I saw it yesterday. I didn't buy it. I probably should have done, but I wasn't in the mood for eating it when I saw it. But maybe I'll pick some up when I'm next at the supermarket.
It's only 99 calories.
I think that's per 30 gram serving. I don't think that's 99 calories for the whole bag.
Oh yeah, it looks like it's a big bag. That does not look like something that has international shipping. It looks like you just have to show up at a grocery store in the UK for this. I'm sorry, people, but it is a UK website, right?
Yeah, Butterkiss is I think it's a UK company.
Yeah, probably. I'm not familiar with it, so maybe it is.
They're our popcorn maker, basically.
Okay.
If you want popcorn, that's the one to buy. But maybe I'll pick some up. There's been a lot of pulled pork in the last kind of 3 or 4 months in the UK.
You're finally discovering American barbecue, I guess, huh?
Right. I love pulled pork. And I went to a great place when I was in New York. Was really, really good. And it's kind of just ruined pulled pork for me.
Do you remember what it was called?
Oh, I think I've got it. Excuse the keyboard for a moment. I have found it. This was a place called Rogue.
Okay. Haven't heard of that one.
It's a sports bar, and which for me was just I don't like sports anyway. But this place had 14 televisions, and it wasn't a very big kind of restaurant bar kind of place anyway, but 14 TVs, and I think there was maybe 7 or 8 different sports going on at any one time.
Yep.
But they had some pulled pork there that was just fantastic. And after that, it kind of just completely ruined it for me over here. But the problem I think we have in the UK is you'll see like McDonald's are doing pulled pork now in one of their burgers. But I think when they say pulled pork, they just mean bits of pork. I mean, this is not really pulled pork. It's just some pork that they've cooked and chopped up, and they're calling it pulled pork.
Oh, okay.
So even the popcorn, I wonder what that's really going to taste like, or if it's actually going to be any good or not.
Yeah, I think it would probably be gross.
I would imagine. So.
I gotta be honest. You can't turn pulled pork into a powder and put it on popcorn. It's just not. That's not natural.
No, it doesn't seem too good.
But you can give it a shot. That's okay.
So you found what might be the best headline of any news story ever. Would you want to read this out, John? I don't want to take this away from you.
Yeah, you know what? I clicked on it a minute ago and it started an autoplaying of video. So hopefully that didn't get picked up. But I'm gonna open the tweet because the tweet doesn't have any video, obviously. The headline is: Pig in Australia steals 18 beers from campers, gets drunk, fights cow.
I mean, that is just the best headline I've ever read. It's just glorious.
Yeah, we should give Graham Spencer a hard time because I'll tell you, every time I find weird news stories, they're almost always from Australia.
Yeah, I saw
a lot of strange stuff happens there. Just saying. Yeah,
definitely. It's probably the heat. It's probably the heat and all the animals that are trying to kill them on a daily basis.
Yes, Australia. And then I guess this is if you really want to go, you can go to the Nature World News. This is just one of those things I found on Twitter, so I don't typically go to the Nature World News.
No.
Yeah, wild pig drinks 18 beers and fights a cow. All right.
It's just a fantastic headline, and just what a wonderful story. I wanted to talk about this a little bit because this looks amazing, and I wonder if you're going to be buying it as well. The Ghostbusters Firehouse Headquarters Lego set.
Yeah, I saw you tweet this. This is pretty cool. Yeah,
this is just over 4,500 pieces.
Wow.
It's going to be UK. I think it's £275. US is maybe $350.
Right.
So it's an expensive set. But I'm definitely going to be buying it. I mean, it just looks like an amazing set, and it's actually the third biggest set Lego have ever made.
Oh, really? What was the biggest one? Didn't they do that wasn't the Empire State Building?
No, the biggest one was the Taj Mahal.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then I believe the second is one of the older Death Star sets.
Right.
It was the second biggest. But yeah, the Taj Mahal was one of the biggest. But yeah, this is going to be the third biggest set they've ever made.
We have one that's approaching those. We have one of the original Millennium Falcon sets.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's really cool. I think it's still. Yep, there it is. It's up on the shelf. It's still put together after all these years. So.
Yeah, it's there seemed to be. This was a kind of just came out of nowhere that they were, building this Ghostbusters, releasing this Ghostbusters HQ. Because a set very similar to this had been on Lego Ideas for a while, and it actually got rejected for being too big really for a Lego Ideas set. But yeah, it's going to be interesting when that comes out, and I'm sure that'll be kind of 3 or 4 days of my life gone while I build it.
Yeah, well, they have some Ghostbusters sets for the new Lego Dimensions video game too. I know my kids got that for their birthday, so I haven't really played it yet. But it's a pretty neat. It's a great concept. You can mix and match all these characters and have them in the game all at the same time. But I think if you want to unlock every single aspect of the game, I saw somewhere online someone calculated it would be like $350, $400, something like that, to have all the different little sets and all the little figures you need to unlock all parts of the game.
Yeah, that was the figure I saw, around $400, and that wasn't even to own all of the actual physical sets. That was purely to unlock every piece of content that's in the game.
Okay.
So that that's a lot of money for for one game.
Yeah, we got the starter set and then a Simpsons pack.
Oh, okay. So that gives you the Simpsons levels, I guess, in plus.
Yeah, I think so. And it's a lot. There's a lot of there's the parts of the game it opens are very large. There's a lot there to play. So it's definitely, it's not like they're just charging you for putting one more character in the game. There's significant portions of the game that get opened up, but it could get expensive fast.
Yeah, I'm keeping an eye on the starter set because they've got a Back to the Future level. There's a pack, which I've already bought the Back to the Future pack because I wanted the figures and stuff that came with it. But I'm keeping an eye on the starter set because, to be honest, I'd really like to play that the Back to the Future section that they've got in the game.
Yeah, it's $100 here, I think.
Yeah, I've seen it dropping. I think it started at £75 over here, but I have seen some offers where it's hitting kind of £55 and £60. So maybe it'll drop a little bit. And I used to work at a second-hand game shop, so I might have a word with them and say, look, if one comes in second-hand, just let me know, and I'll get it from there.
It might kind of the price might go down after the holidays too. I would think once kind of that initial, once they get everybody who's trying to buy it for the holidays, they'll maybe drop the price. Who knows?
Yeah, maybe. Well, as I say, I'll be keeping an eye out. So, Was there anything else you want to talk about, John, or are we pretty much wrapped up for this week?
I think that's probably it. We could talk endlessly about snack food, but we'll save some of those for some other time.
Excellent. So you can find me. I'm at rmlewisuk on Twitter, and my website is roblewis.me. John, where can people find you?
At John Voorhees on Twitter, and Scribner.com is where all the Scribner apps and projects are right now.
Perfect. And you can find the show notes there at ruminatepodcast.com/7. And we will be back in a couple of weeks.
Great. See you then, Rob.
See you later, John.
Bye.